David Sable back again with New York Festival's Creativity from the Other Side, where we explore the creative process. We talk to some of the most creative people that I know, people who are just creating great things. Sometimes they're in fashion, sometimes they're in food. And today we're back in the agency world. And I would like to introduce a new FOD, friend of David, Allison Pierce, who has recently been named the Global Chief Creative Officer for Intel at VMLY&R, a company that many of you know is very, very close to my heart and part of WPP. And so, Allison, welcome.
Well, thanks. Happy to be here.
Where am I finding you? Where are you right now?
I am in the basement of a house in Kansas City.
Kansas City. So have you traveled at all since the
No.
pandemic?
Well, I was traveling a lot the very beginning of 2020 just because we were pitching Intel. So we were in San Francisco a lot. And then once kind of lockdowns happened, I haven't gone anywhere other than Tennessee once. But
Now, we're going to talk about Tennessee because Tennessee is very important to Allison's life.
Yes.
But tell me about your boys. I know you have young boys.
I do. I have two. I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old boy, and they're awesome and they're very busy. And, I was thinking the other day about how the beginning of last year, they were home with me while we were onboarding Intel, a giant client, and, doing it all in a way that nobody's ever done it before. So I'm not sure how I survived that, but I did.
And are they in Zoom school? Have they returned to live school?
Yeah, so they did go back one of them went back in August and one of them went back in September. So it's been fairly normal for us in school-wise, which has been good.
And office, have you returned at all? Has anybody?
No, I've gone in for maybe 3 or 4 meetings, but mostly it's funny because, me and one of the other ECDs will go in and we'll be like, oh, it'll be great. We'll talk. And then we both end up on video calls, just like down the way. So it's
might as well stay home. I'm with you. Now, tell me about horses. I know you love horses.
Oh gosh, you're getting right to my favorite subject.
I do my research. I don't like just, I got to talk to people. Tell us about your horses.
That is my passion. I try, and actually the best thing about COVID, which I know there's so many bad things about it, but for me, the good thing about it is that it's allowed me to ride more. So I have a horse that I board not far from here, and I've taken a few meetings from on top of my horse. So I usually tell people so they're not alarmed if, I'm huffing and puffing, but that's definitely my sort of therapy.
That's great. And so you have been able to ride and you've been able to.
Yeah, it's the ultimate social distancing sport. Usually you don't get very close to other people. So we haven't, really had much disruption there, which has been nice.
Good for you. So we're going to get to specific work in a second, but I'd like to talk about Intel for a moment, because that was a big win. And as you suggested, it was an onboarding like few others. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the pitch? And remember, we're talking about creativity from this side. What should people pay attention to when they go into a pitch like that?
Yeah, I actually was not originally part of the pitch. I think it had started in summer of 2019. So it was quite a long process, and they brought in a new CMO kind of in the middle of the pitch in Karen Walker. And so we had to do a little bit of kind of like reshuffling in order to accommodate for that and get the work to a good point. And so I came in January, so the team had already really been working on it for a while, but we reset. We felt like, we had been going down a direction that maybe wasn't right, and we completely reset. And I lived in the office pretty much all of January with tons of other people. And,
you were VMLY&R inside.
Yes.
While you were working on Intel inside.
Yes, exactly. So, it was a long process, a long pitch, but the clients are just really great, and there was a lot of partners involved in some of the pitch process and the things that we were doing, and we went in and we presented 3 different directions, and they loved 2 of them, and so we just kept kind of refining the work until we got to a point. And a lot of times you do pitches and the clients don't buy the work that you pitch, but this was one of the instances where the work that we pitched was ultimately the work that we produced.
That's awesome. So here's a little known historical fact, but John Cook and I, so John, for those who are watching and listening, is the CEO of VMLY&R. We pitched that business together in 2000, maybe 2001, when VML first came into the in fact, I'm not even sure they were part of WPP yet, but I had met VML, and I always loved them. I always thought it was such a great, fun, smart bunch of people. And I think it was the very, very first piece of business that was actually joint pitched by VML and anybody inside WPP. And it was great. We had such an awesome time. Don't think it was just for a small piece of business. I'm not sure we actually won it or didn't win it. It actually didn't make a difference because we just had so much fun. It was great. So there you go. All these years later, now you're the AOR.
Yeah, it must have been foreshadowing. That's awesome.
Good for you. So what should we be looking at in that work? What should we be looking for?
Transformation. I think that the big thing for them is, it's funny you mention Intel Inside, because they have been talking so long about where their product is within a product, right? It's inside the computer. And I think now they want to focus more on what does their product enable us to do, and what are the wonderful things we can do because of Intel technology. And so it's just a shift sort of from focusing so much on the inside to starting to focus on more of what that technology does.
It does.
Yeah. And I think the timing's perfect, because I think we all are realizing, especially with COVID and everything, how important technology can be to us in all sorts of ways, not from medical, uses, even to us talking on our Zoom meeting and everything working.
Good. Well, we look forward to seeing all that work. So you have won a ton of awards in the industry.
Well, me and lots of other people.
Well, no, I understand that. That's how it goes. But the truth is, your name is associated with many, many awards, many, many top awards, in fact. And because we're talking about the New York festivals, I'll start with one that actually won gold at the New York festivals, and that was Bumble.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Tell us about, explain what Bumble is, how that work came together with Serena, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where did it come from? What inspired you and the other creative directors to think about Serena? And it's really a powerful spot.
Yeah, that was a really great opportunity. A partner that I worked with actually on a lot of Tennessee work had a great relationship with Bumble. Bumble obviously being the dating app where women make the first move. And so she brought us that connection. I think it was Thanksgiving, and said, hey, Bumble wants to do a Super Bowl spot. Are you in? And of course, we were in. And one of the best parts about it was that they really wanted it to be an all female team. Not that we were actively going to exclude men, but as many women as we could get on to this team. We wanted to see what we could really do if we put our heads together. And so obviously, I think most Super Bowl spots now are like this, but it's like you're late to the game. So we were really having to move quickly. And when Whitney had started Bumble, she had said, I want to have Serena Williams one day in a spot, because the line that they use is the ball's in her court, and that, she just always wanted to work with Serena. So that part of the deal was kind of already done by the time that we were brought in. So then our job was, okay, how do we make, Bumble and Serena and that partnership make sense? How do we get this message out there in 30 seconds? And we tapped into every female that we had creatively across our network and said, start writing scripts. And John Gotzi, my boss, said, you better write scripts too, because, we're going to need everybody's thinking on this. So I did the same thing, and we just started, throwing stuff out there. I think, I wrote the best script I've ever written, and they didn't end up buying it. But it was a great exercise in that. And ultimately the script that became the spot, we had presented a different idea, and Bumble loved it. Serena didn't love it. So we had to rewrite it. We had 3 hours, and they were like, we need to figure it out in 3 hours. So it was a Sunday, and we just, writers roomed it and ended up on the script we landed on.
And there you go. I mean, that's just an important message for everyone who's listening, for all the creatives. I mean, sometimes you write the best script that you've ever written in your life. Client doesn't buy it. They buy something else, and then you're working with talent and they don't buy it.
Yeah.
And you sort of have to rewrite it. What I loved about the work, and tell me if I'm right, most dating apps are much more about the hookup. This was all about empowerment.
Mm-hmm. It was. And part of that was because Bumble was also launching Bumble Biz. They had Bumble BFF, and they had the dating portion of Bumble. And so they didn't want it just to be focused on one thing. I mean, this was really that the entire app is built kind of around female empowerment. And so they wanted that message to come through. And I think it did.
It did. Oh, totally. It did. So let's move on from Serena, Bumble, and tennis and move into tourism. Because I think that the work that you've done for Tennessee is among some of the most awarded travel work or tourism work that I know of. Just from the point of view of the performance marketing side of it, just actually getting people to really sign up and go. I think from its depth, from the use of music. So why don't you start at the beginning? Take us through a bit of a journey with Tennessee, and then talk about tourism during COVID, because I know you've got something to say about that.
Yeah, no, this Tennessee is near and dear to my heart. It's one of those accounts where I think, especially when it comes to domestic tourism, those accounts come across, in the pitch process, and you're like, the work historically is usually not amazing. It can hit or miss. Obviously, when you start to get international with like Australia and stuff, you start to see really great work. But in the U.S., you don't see a lot. And we pitched it because we had a really great relationship with the city of Nashville. We had done work specifically with them. We did a film with them, and so we felt like of all the places, music being your brand and being the thing that you're using to drive people in was something that we wanted to do. And honestly, the funny thing is we've had 3 different clients, at least head clients, and we've had lots of different clients kind of come in and out over the years. But we just started to establish with them, doing things that had never been done, or starting to, look at things differently. I think a lot of clients like that there's a way that you do that kind of advertising, and they don't like to deviate from that. And we just kind of said, hey, let's go on this ride. Let's try this thing. Let's try that thing. And they, said one time they said yes, and then it worked. And then so the next time it was easier for them to say yes. And it just kept working. My sister is a data analyst for VMLY&R, and she works on Tennessee with me. And so we make sure that we don't do anything that isn't sort of rooted in research and data. We make sure that we measure everything so we know that it's working. And so that makes it so much easier for them to continue to kind of buy things that are unique and different. But
so hold it there for a second. Lessons for the listener, right? So 1, just keep going back, right? Yeah. Earn the trust. Mm-hmm. And if you keep going back and earn trust, you get to do great things.
So it's so true. I say that with all my clients too. It's like, if we know it's a lot of times it's going to be baby steps, because everybody is dealing with their own fears on the client side. They have their own things that they need to make sure that they hit and that they don't ruffle feathers here or there. And so if you can just start to build that trust and just say, hey, let's see what happens. They definitely, I think it starts to work, but it takes time and it takes perseverance sometimes.
So tell us about tourism in the time of the plague.
Yeah, it has been rough. I remember a call, I think it was April of last year, where
At the very beginning.
This very beginning, and we had presented ideas for how we can encourage people to travel safely. So a lot of stuff like from their car, like we actually, before drive-in concerts were a thing, we pitched drive-in concerts and things like that, where we could like hopefully, you know, get people out, but we weren't putting anybody in danger. And I remember one of our clients said, if this is what, you know, tourism's going to be like, then I don't know if I want to do it. And I think it's interesting because that was the feeling at the time. Everybody was like, this can't be real. Like, you know, I don't think that this is going to last. And here we are now, we know kind of what's happened, but Tennessee has fared well because obviously the eastern part of the state has a lot of outdoor activities that people can do relatively safely. They actually had, I think, their best year ever in that part of the state. Nashville, my sweet, wonderful, amazing Nashville, they've struggled because obviously, you know, business travel.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bars, business travel.
Yeah, but we're still doing work. We did a campaign called For the Love of Tennessee, Travel Safe. And, you know, the whole thing was just about like, okay, this is how you can get out here safely and, you know, still get your travel, you know, in, but do it in a way that you're not going to danger yourself or other people. So, you know, we've done it, but it is, I think the next thing we have to figure out is, okay, once people are really traveling again, you're going to have a lot of places that are going to be all trying to do the same thing. So we got to figure out how to cut through.
They are, and still in a different way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's going to be with us for a while.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be interesting to see where everybody comes out on this. I know I have a lot of discussions, a lot of different people in different areas, but I think the one thing everybody agrees on is it's not like it's going to be magic. 1 minute it's over and then our masks go away and we can go travel again. I think they're here for a long time, and we'll see how it works. But I sort of feel good about it. I see people traveling again. You know, I speak to people who are back on planes, and I get on the train here in New York, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
With a mask and masked up and everything. But I think people, and I see it, I just see people are starting to feel more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
So hopefully that works for Tennessee as well. So one of the great campaigns that you did, just from the point of view of total innovation, was the Colorblind Viewer.
Yeah.
Tell us why that was important. How did you think to do that? And then how did it all come together?
Yeah, that one was, you know, again, you've got sort of a parody product in fall colors. A lot of people, a lot of locations, you know, have beautiful fall colors, and Tennessee, of course, is right up there with all of them. But when you start to look at the work that's normally done that time of year, it all looks the same. I mean, it's all fall colors, looks the same. So our thought was like, we need a way to stand out. We needed to do something different. And what we actually didn't know and found out as we were presenting was that our client's son was colorblind as well, and he had to stop us and walk out of the room because he was so emotional when we were presenting the work, because he loves the fall colors. They live in East Tennessee, and his son's never seen it. So you know, I think it was just one of those things where, you know, we've seen you're on Facebook, you're scrolling, you see people have reactions to wearing the Enchroma glasses. And then you're like, oh man, imagine if somebody was putting those on and looking at the leaves. And it's like they, you know, and seeing it for the first time. And that was really what we were trying to tap into, is how do we show everybody who takes this for granted, that we see it all the time, what it feels like when somebody sees it for the first time. And it makes you, you know, for all of us, yeah, we've been so lucky. We take it for granted, and now we're going to look at it in a new light. And so that was kind of where that was born. But the challenge on that too was that not only the technology, that we had to make sure the technology worked, but we had to shoot that. We shot it, edited, and had it on air in 4 days. Just because timing was so important, we had to get it out while people could still come see the fall colors. But that piece has been the gift that keeps on giving, because 4 years later, it's still a story, and now that's a real product that anybody can buy.
What I love about it, though, is what you said. It's not just for the person who's colorblind, and which is awesome because for them, but just the notion of reminding the rest of us that we take the beauty of the world for granted sometimes. I think it's such a deep insight, such a special insight. So congratulations on that one.
Thanks.
So let's talk about another couple of pieces of work. Wendy's. Wendy's is a big account, really innovative, cool account in VMLY&R. What's your favorite piece that you've worked on? And even if it's not your favorite, your second favorite piece, I don't care.
Well, so on Wendy's, my role, I helped pitch Wendy's twice. So as part of the pitch team, I worked on some smaller things. Like there was the very first campaign we ever did for Wendy's, I helped work on, but it's not necessarily very notable now. I do have, I'm recognized on the credits for the album that we did. But mostly my role on that was just, I helped craft the case study. Certainly.
Well, that's good, but tell us about the work in general, because it is very insightful. And yeah, I think, again, as a story of what someone might learn from the creative, it's a piece of business that started with buttons and banners essentially back in the day, and then ends up the AOR doing crazy Fortnite stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Wendy's is it's a beast, and it is an example of like that slow, methodical, chipping away type process. Because you're right, we started doing banner ads for them. That's where it all started, and we started to develop that social voice and start doing things. Where the number one thing that we did early on was that they hired Matt, who was a comedian, and we said, we're not going to just hire an advertising person to be the voice of Wendy's. Like, let's hire a comedian, somebody who does, thinks quick and does this every day, and hire them to be the voice of Wendy's. So I think that was like a huge first move. And then everything that they've done, they're just trying to be part of culture, and they've solidified themselves, Wendy, as a celebrity, which I think is so cool. And now it's hilarious. We were talking about it the other day, where other brands, even though they know they will get roasted and they will end up sort of looking maybe even silly, will like poke at Wendy's just for the eyeballs that they'll get. That they'll self-deprecate themselves just to have that exposure. And you see it all the time, which I think is like crazy when you think about
crazy third-party endorsement, like backwards third-party endorsement.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's impressive. And every time they put something out, I'm amazed and impressed that they've done it. It just truly is. I can't imagine a better account as a creative probably to work on, because your job is just to entertain 100%. And they do the smartest stuff on all their social channels, and they have a different strategy for each one. And it's fascinating to watch.
And now tell us about the New York festivals. What should people be thinking about? Like, all these people who are listening, they're going to be thinking about work that they're going to put in. They want to win like you have so many times. What should they be thinking about?
Claude Kelly, he's a songwriter. He wrote "Party in the USA" for Miley Cyrus. When we interviewed him, he said whenever he's writing a song that he's chasing the chills. And I think that's 1,000% applicable to what we're looking for too, right? When we look at work, like we want that moment where you're like, oh, I wish I would have thought of that. That is so smart. And so the type of work that I hope we're rewarding in the industry is that kind of stuff that you're like, ooh, like I can't argue with any of that. And so I would think that would be what we're hoping to see when we're looking through the work.
So I hope everybody is paying attention. Chase those chills.
Yeah.
Like find your best work, tell the story in the best way that you can, so that Allison gets the chills, and who knows, you might win gold.
Yeah.
So one last question. Name of your horse?
Rio Cool.
Rio Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Very good. I love it. So Allison, it's been great talking to you. I really appreciate it. Just your work, what you do, your family life, your dedication to all is just so inspiring. And I know you've inspired everybody who's watching and listening. I know that there are a whole bunch of people who are going to go back and like go into a panic about the work that they're going to send that you might see as a judge, but that's good because it's going to make their product that much better. So FOD, friend of David, Allison Pierce, Global Chief Creative Officer for Intel at VMLY&R. And this is David Sable for New York Festivals, Creativity from the Other Side.